Good afternoon and welcome to the webinar. We are delighted that Michael Clay and Elizabeth Zastrow accepted the invitation and will be presenting on the Paid Internship Program. Before I officially introduce our presenters, please allow me to address a few logistical items. I am Will Francis, Project Director for Post-Secondary Education at the Tarjan Center. The Tarjan Center at UCLA is a federally designated Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities and your host for today's webinar. Support for today's webinar comes from the California Community College's Chancellor's Office through a contract that enables us to provide technical assistance and training to community colleges, disability support services, and DSPS, who are working to provide equitable supports and services and opportunities for students with disabilities, including intellectual disabilities and autism. A number of our colleagues are unable to attend today's webinar and have requested a recording of the proceedings. In order to facilitate access to a clean recording of the webinar, we have muted all calls. As we proceed through the presentation, our presenters would love to respond to your questions that arise from or that are related to the content of the presentation. Please take a look at the bottom of the Zoom program display where you may find a chat or text box. We are asking that you insert your questions into the chat box throughout the duration of the webinar. We will address your questions and welcome you to submit as many questions as naturally arise. You may ask questions at any time, and we will also try to reserve some time at the end of the presentation for additional questions. This may be a good time to test the chat function. Please take this opportunity to enter a greeting into the chat box. Thank you. Many of your institutions are currently having conversations about student outcomes that are focused on increasing the number of students who earn a degree, credential, certificate, or that transfer to four-year institutions or secure jobs in their field of study. The community colleges in particular are developing plans and strategies for supporting students to get in and through the institutions using the Guided Pathways framework. The four pillars of the framework are: create clear curricular pathways to employment and further education, help students choose and enter their pathway, help students stay on their path, and ensure that learning is happening with intentional outcomes. The first pillar recognizes that some of our students attend college to prepare for employment. In recent years, there has been some intentional focus on competitive integrated employment as an expected outcome for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities in the state of California. In 2013, Governor Brown signed California's Employment First policy into law. It requires regional centers to consider competitive integrated employment as the first option in planning for the adult participation of individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. The Departments of Developmental Services, Education, and Rehabilitation have developed the California Competitive Integrated Employment Blueprint. The blueprint may be found on California's Health and Human Services website. It provides guidance on establishing and implementing local partnership agreements, or LPAs, to foster collaboration that will lead to workforce preparation and employment. Michael will briefly discuss LPAs in his presentation. It is our hope that the information that Michael and Liz will share will be useful to you as you assist students who are interested in obtaining work experience, securing jobs, and building careers. While the specific paid internship program that we will discuss was developed at a school district, community colleges may follow the same processes to develop internship opportunities for college students who are planning for employment and thinking about potential careers. We anticipate that following this webinar, you will contact the employment specialist at your local regional center. They can provide guidance if you are interested in becoming a vendor to provide paid internships at your site. The employment specialist may also provide information about the LPAs or local partnership initiatives if you are interested in signing on to a local partnership agreement. The Paid Internship Program and local partnership agreements are relatively new. Depending on where you are located in the state, you may experience some delay in the implementation of these initiatives. To all our participants today, thank you for joining. I will provide some information now about our presenters. Liz Zastrow is a program specialist for Lodi Unified School District and serves as coordinator for Workability 1, Transition Partnership Program, California Promise, California Career Innovations, and the Paid Internship Program. Ms. Zastrow started teaching in 1976. The Paid Internship Program she will describe started in January of 2017 and serves Lodi students. It is also important to note that the Lodi School District was the first in California to implement the Paid Internship Program. The program's first intern was recently hired, and 4 additional students have referrals and are ready to move to employment. Welcome, Liz Zastrow. Before Ms. Zastrow presents, Mr. Clay from the funding agency will provide an overview and related information about the Paid Internship Program. Michael Clay currently serves as the Assistant Chief of the Work Services Section at the California Department of Developmental Services, also referred to as DDS. He has been with DDS for more than 3 years, where he provides technical assistance to regional centers and supported employment programs and assists individuals to improve their employment outcomes. Prior to his work with DDS, Mr. Clay enjoyed a career in the private sector, where he worked with service providers in a number of capacities, including quality assurance management, program director, and as a direct support professional. He has a passion for helping people achieve all that is possible and to see people with disabilities living the life that they choose to the fullest of their potential. Welcome, Michael Clay. I would like to thank our presenters for their willingness to share the wealth of their knowledge with the California community colleges and partners that have joined us today. And now, without further ado, here is Michael Clay.
Thank you, Will. I'm very happy to help participate in this webinar. This is an exciting time in the service delivery and employment field, as I truly believe we are creating a new infrastructure to help individuals engage in and succeed in competitive integrated employment, also referred to as CIE, as we sometimes call it. I know a lot of people are interested in the Paid Internship Program and also the CIE Incentive Program. They are strong programs that are increasing people's participation in the workforce. And I'm going to talk about those programs in a few minutes, but I also want to share a little bit of the background on the state's end to facilitate positive outcomes for people looking to get into CIE, which began with the creation of the California Competitive Integrated Employment Blueprint, which was finalized and printed into multiple language May of last year, 2017. As you may know, the CIE Blueprint project is a partnership between the California Department of Education, the Department of Rehabilitation, and the Department of Developmental Services to develop a blueprint that is designed to increase opportunities for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities to prepare for and engage in competitive integrated employment. The blueprint contains the specific goals and recommendations that will guide the departments over the course of the next 5 years and highlights collaboration at both the state and local levels to support each individual on his or her pathway to competitive integrated employment. The 3 state departments, along with the Health and Human Services Agency and Disability Rights California, provided the leadership for the development of this project, along with input from a wide cross-section of stakeholders. The primary outcome of the blueprint is to increase the number of individuals who have intellectual or developmental disabilities to participate in competitive integrated employment. Beginning in state fiscal year 17-18, which is this current fiscal year, the collective departments will have a targeted outcome to increase the number of individuals in CIE by at least 300. And in next year's fiscal year 18-19, by 500 individuals. Okay. Goal number one, the first goal of the blueprint is to improve collaboration and coordination between the three departments to prepare and support all individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities who choose competitive integrated employment. Choice is still a fundamental aspect of services provided under the authority of the Lanterman Act. California has an employment first policy, which means every consumer of working age can choose employment, and we will, through a person-centered planning process, help that person work towards achieving his or her goal. It does not mean you have to try employment first before you can choose other services. The objectives and strategies for goal number one are to expand joint information shared as permitted by law. There are efforts underway to improve our data sharing capacity currently between DDS, DOR, and CDE. To coordinate efforts to utilize existing resources effectively. There are concerns at the federal level when states talk about blending or braiding funding. In the blueprint, the three departments focus on ways to coordinate and sequence services in a way that best supports each individual. Sometimes services funded by CDE, DOR, and DDS are linear, provided one at a time. Sometimes services overlap for a portion of time, and sometimes services are provided simultaneously. What the federal government is concerned about is that one system does not displace another system's funding or somehow both pay for the same thing at the same time, which is often called double dipping. Another objective, increased collaboration on planning, implementation, and evaluation of CIE. No one partner in this process has all the resources or responsibilities. We share responsibilities, and our resources should optimally complement each other to the benefit of our mutual clients. The strategies for goal number one, to jointly develop and communicate written guidance. This is currently being drafted and will be available very soon. To promote local level collaboration and development of LPAs, local partnership agreements, that address CIE. I will be speaking a little bit later about local partnership agreements, as Will had kind of mentioned earlier. And to jointly improve data collection and sharing, in addition to the efforts to share data between the three main blueprint partners. And currently, DDS is working with the Employment Development Department on a contract that will provide non-aggregated vocational data from EDD. The second goal of the blueprint is to increase opportunities for individuals with intellectual disabilities and developmental disabilities who choose CIE to prepare for and participate in the California workforce development system and to achieve CIE within those existing resources. This goal is really about capacity building within the statewide system. Department of Education and the local education areas, DOR and their regional offices, and DDS and our regional centers will need to do some work to identify the gaps in available services, gaps in the knowledge base of existing providers, and identify what other untapped resources exist that we can leverage to help us increase capacity. Of course, one of the potential untapped resources is the community college system. Some of the objectives for goal number two, increase CIE through participation in work experience, employment preparation services, fundamental employment skills training, post-secondary education and training, customized employment, and supported employment individual placements. As some of you may know, individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities frequently spend their academic careers and post-school years in services and programs that have traditionally had very little focus on building the person's fundamental employment skills or work experience. With today's shift in focus from having a safe place to be each day to helping people who choose to achieve CIE, we have work in all three systems to create the services and programs that are needed to accomplish that. Another objective, increased participation of individuals with intellectual developmental disabilities in the California workforce development system, including America's Job Centers of California, formerly known as One-Stops. All three departments realize that historically the workforce development system under the administration of the Employment Development Department has not been utilized by individuals with disabilities. EDD has new requirements from the federal government that should facilitate our systems partnering to tap into the workforce development system resources. Another objective, improve business partner engagement and job-driven training with regard to hiring individuals with intellectual developmental disabilities in both the public and private sectors. Again, this is about two fundamental approaches to working with businesses. One is to identify the knowledge, skills, and abilities that the businesses are looking for in the people they hire as employees, and to help consumers to acquire those skills to be competitive. This has been the primary role of supported employment since the 1980s. The second is to work with businesses to identify specific business needs that can be met by the knowledge, skills, and abilities of a specific consumer and carve a new position within the business for that consumer. This is what is meant by customized employment, and most agencies are still learning how to implement this approach. Some of the strategies for Goal 2: jointly identify and improve EEE practices. Those are effective, emerging, or exemplary practices. I think you'll find when Liz is speaking in a little bit later that the vendorization of Lodi School District and any school district is definitely an emerging practice. It looks like it's an effective practice, and we're hoping that in time we'll consider it an exemplary practice. These are services, practices, and models that are effective, meaning already working, or are beginning to emerge, as I mentioned, as being effective, or are exemplary and considered to be an evidence-based practice. Sharing these services, practices, and models as they become known can help areas borrow from what is already working right now. Excuse me. Right now, I would characterize the paid internship program as an emerging practice, one that I think we may find exemplary in the near future as positive data rolls in. Another strategy is to determine and encourage statewide supported employment provider capacity to support CIE. Service providers within the regional center system may want to add supported employment to their array of services, and new providers who may not have been traditionally tapped by regional centers may also want to provide supported employment. To support transition from school to employment preparation services and CIE, not all students who exit the K-12 system will be ready or want CIE right away. For these adults, tapping into other employment preparation programs such as adult education, community college, career technical education, or the AJCCs can be another way to build the skills to achieve their future goals. Develop business partner initiatives. While this one may seem obvious, it is also challenging to do in a way that will keep the businesses engaged. And to develop tools and resources. DDS will be developing a CIE website and store tools and resources there that can be helpful in this endeavor. And goal number 3, to support the ability of individuals with intellectual disabilities and developmental disabilities to make informed choices, adequately prepare for, transition to, and engage in CIE. It was a focus of the team from CDE, DOR, and DDS to keep the focus of the blueprint as person-centered process. No two people have identical paths to CIE, even when they use the same resources. Enabling consumers to take charge with the support each person needs will be critical to each person's long-term success. The objectives and strategies: offer individuals, their support network, and business partners information and technical assistance related to CIE. Increase individual awareness of tools and resources available to support the achievement of the career goals towards CIE. Support the development of system knowledge, skills, and abilities to deliver CIE. Increase participation in activities that support informed choice leading to CIE. Helping consumers and, when appropriate, their families or support network know what resources are available, the variety of options that are within their local communities, and acquire the skills to advocate for themselves is another focus of the blueprint. This fits nicely with the new CMS settings rule as we move from a site-based and segregated services to community participation and independence for the consumers we support. It does take a community to facilitate positive change. I thank each of you for your interest and your participation as we go about assisting people achieve their successes. Now, I would like to transition and give you a small amount of information on 2 relatively new programs that I think will interest you. The first is the Paid Internship Program, which I'll go over in a very brief fashion as there will be more detailed PowerPoint speaking to this topic shortly. The Paid Internship Program. Internships are predicated on the person-centered planning process, the individual program plan developed by the individual with help from his or her planning team. The amount of time an individual can participate in a paid internship is only restricted by a dollar amount. Specifically, individuals can utilize $10,400 per year for their internships. Now, some of that money can go to employer payroll costs, such as workers' comp. If the internship ends for any reason before the $10,400 is exhausted, then the individual can partake in another paid internship, utilizing the remaining portion of unused money, assuming that there is also time in the year for that internship. Individuals, if so desired and agreed upon by their ID team, could have other internships after the initial internship in subsequent years. There are also multiple benefits for the individual in a paid internship program. One, the internship could lead to a direct hire with the company hosting the intern. That would be ideal. But also important, the individual in the PIP, as we sometimes call it, can participate in a more of an on-the-job training aspect, where he or she can build their work skills and experience that might lead to a CIE job in the future. If a community college or district cannot provide the supports to the individual during their PIP, the regional center or DOR district may be able to provide the necessary supports. In addition to community college being able to provide PIPs, consumers 18 to 22 years of age who are in school and interested in participating in the new PIP may be eligible. However, regional centers must comply with the Welfare Institutions Code section 4648.55. However, new trailer bill language says that internships are not considered a generic service, so therefore schools and school districts can be vendorized to provide those internships. Employment-related supports may include job coaching, natural supports, mobility training, or any assistive device that helps an individual in their internship. Here's some examples, obviously, of some possible internships. We've seen this through some of our initial data. Often we see individuals with IDDD have jobs in landscaping or janitorial, among other things, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with those jobs. But what we do like to see is individuals exploring different types of employment possibilities. These are some of the internships currently being explored by consumers. Some recent successes from data collected from regional centers and service providers over the last year. Here are some of the successes from the data we've collected. We've seen individuals get their forklift operator license. Many individuals have pursued and received their food handling certificates. Another individual was able to do childcare. Now, this person reportedly would have been able to work in other fields without the aid of a paid internship, but the PIP allowed the door to a childcare opportunity to open, which was a passion for this individual. So therefore, instead of getting any old job, this individual was able to follow their passion. That's one of the many attributes to a paid internship program, is not only you're building jobs, skills, and experience, but you have the opportunity to actually seek out what you think might be something you'd like to do long-term and that you enjoy. I'd like to share one success story, if I can. This is a story about Meryl. Meryl's story is a good example of using person-centered planning and the coordination between school, a regional center, and the Department of Rehabilitation staff to help Meryl plan and achieve CIE. Meryl came to DDS as a student intern in the Sacramento City Unified School District, 18 to 22-year-old program. Meryl was learning independent living skills and trying a variety of jobs to see what his interest related to work might be. He was also taking classes in college, such as typing, to prepare for a career. While an intern at DDS, he learned to use public transit and learned clerical duties such as organizing documents, including scanning for archival purposes, document delivery, and customer service skills. While in school, Meryl decided he would like to pursue a clerical job with the state, and he was supported by his teachers and regional center to be referred to the Department of Rehabilitation for job placement supports. With the help of DOR, his regional center, and school, Meryl completed high school and has made the transition to CIE. He holds 3 very different part-time jobs because his interests are much broader than clerical work. One of his jobs is working as a legislative assistant in the state capitol, where he assists in the office processing mail, shredding documents, organizing the newspapers, and making deliveries of important letters to other offices in the Capitol. In his own words, Merrill has this advice to people: advocate for yourself, speak for yourself, be willing to try out a good job, even though it might be a challenging job that you don't like at first. You might actually like it later. Don't give up. Now, I kind of want to talk just a touch about some other supports that are available for individuals that are a little bit lesser known. While PIP funds can only be used for wages and payroll costs and not for other business expenses like equipment, uniforms, or office space leasing, what a PIP can do for someone who is interested in pursuing going into business for themselves is pay for their time as they learn the workings of their new field or how to manage a business. In other words, a paid internship program does not necessarily have to be a job out in the community for an employer. It could be a self-employment or micro enterprise for the individual. In addition to the paid internship programs, there are other resources available to help individuals as they begin their vocational journey. I've listed a couple here. One is considered a PASS plan. PASS is plan to achieve self-sufficiently, and that can be used to help with startup costs. And then the IRWI, impairment-related work expenses, can be used to help with other costs that help people work. For more information on those, I've listed the website, and I would suggest you go to that just to learn more information about those programs. Now something on the Competitive Integrated Employment Incentive Payment Program. CIE incentive payments are payments made to a vendor for placing an individual in a CIE position. These incentive fees are in place to encourage vendors to seek out more opportunities for CIE for our individuals and to emphasize the retention of the job by the individual. So not just get a person a job, but get them a job where they can succeed at and stay there for a reasonable period of time. In the case of an individual who is self-employed, yields an income that is comparable to the income received by other individuals who are not individuals with disabilities and who are self-employed in similar occupations or in similar tasks and who have similar training, experience, and skills. That would also be considered a CIE job, even if in the beginning the individual fails to make the amount of money that would normally be considered minimum wage, as startups often do not make a significant amount of money at the beginning of their business venture. Other attributes of a CIE position is eligible for the level of benefits provided to the other employees in similar positions, and that is at a location where employee interacts with other persons who are not individuals with disabilities, not including supervisory personnel or individuals who are providing services to the employee, to the same extent that individuals who are not individuals with disabilities or in comparable positions interact with other persons. All right, now I'm going to talk about a local partnership agreement. Currently, well, I think I've got this in here, so let me backtrack. One of the most promising aspects of the CIE blueprint and the facilities, that infrastructure that is being newly created, is the local partnership agreements, or the LPA. An LPA is a document that articulates the ways in which local partners will work together to streamline service delivery, engage their communities, and increase competitive integrated employment opportunities for individuals with intellectual disabilities and developmental disabilities. They provide the opportunity for local partners to determine what strategies will work best for them and the populations they serve. A local partnership agreement template, the Interagency Leadership Work Group created, is posted on the California Health and Human Services Agency CIE webpage. Currently throughout the state, there are intense efforts underway to create LPAs within each of the 13 DOR districts, and including all 21 regional centers and a vast network of local education agencies. To date, there are 29 LPAs in development, with at least 2 completed LPAs being reviewed. One of those LPAs has been recently posted to the same CHHS CIE website. Right now, I've probably been talking very, very quickly with a lot of subjects, so Will, if it's reasonable, if there are questions in the chat box that I can't see and you want to ask them, we can do that now before I get a little bit deeper into the LPAs. And after
Thank you so much.
After the LPAs, I think we'll be going back to you and Liz. But if you want us to go for some questions now.
Sure, thank you. So bear with me, audience, because I am scrolling to be certain that I begin with the very first question that has not been addressed. The first question is, do you have to be a regional center client, or can you just be a DOR client? And I assume that the person is asking about participation in the paid internship program.
Yes, the Paid Internship Program is a program specifically for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So yes, they would have to be a regional center consumer.
Thank you. Next question. Let's see here. Sorry, I'm scrolling. Would DDS consider providing grant contracts for providers that would cover staff salaries and benefits to assist youth in getting internships and employment? And then there's a second question when you're done with that one.
Can you repeat that question for me? And generally, I'm not exactly sure how DDS works with providing grants or working with grant workers. So I would definitely have to get back to you on that aspect of the question. But if you can repeat the question for the other part, I would like to hear that.
Yeah, and I'll add to it because there's actually a statement after it. So the question is, would DDS consider providing grant contracts for providers that would cover staff salaries and benefits to assist youth in getting internships and employment? With school district budget cuts and the end of the California Promise Initiative in June of 2019, many local education agencies cannot fund staff to support participation with their career goals.
Yeah, DDS is always looking, obviously, to promote employment, specifically integrated employment, in any way possible. So if that's a viable, if there was a way to do that and it was reasonable and we thought that it would increase individuals' outcomes in CIE, we would certainly look into it. But like as I said earlier, I'm not exactly sure. Supplementing incomes and things like that is a decision well above my pay grade. But DDS is always interested in increasing CIE opportunities. But generally, we have to do it within the resources that are available.
This next person says, I am not familiar with America Job Centers of California. As a potential paid internship program employer, can we register with America's Job Centers as a site that will offer internships through the PIP?
I'm not sure if America's Job Centers of California would work on the PIP, but from my knowledge, they can be vendored for certain things like the CIE incentive payments. If you go to the CHS website and click on the CIE tab, and at the end of my presentation, I'll have that email address. Under the CIT map, we have a employment resource map with many different things, including where regional centers are, where supported employment programs are, I believe Workability One programs, but it also has where the America's Job Centers of California are. So you would just have to kind of click the correct button to isolate where those are, and you can kind of find out where they are in your community. They're run by the California Workforce Development Board, which is under EDD, I believe. So Will, did I answer all of that question, or did I miss an aspect of it?
I hope you have. I am going to ask the person that presented that question if they could indicate in the chat box. That would help us.
Yeah, and one more
Thank
thing.
you.
If there are questions that I'm unable to answer at this time, I'm hoping that it can be forwarded to me, and then I can look into those and respond to them at a later time if I don't have the answer. Right
Yeah,
now.
and I will be more than willing to be the triage, so send the questions to me and I will make sure that they get to Michael. All right, next question. Can the internship funds be used for an employer to pay for background checks or onboarding?
No, but you can work with your regional center. Sometimes they can supplement things for background checks. That might be a cost that they can incur. I'm not saying that they can do that or will do that, but if you talk to them, they might be able to. Paid internship funds are strictly for wages of the consumer in the internship and the payroll costs that would be associated with that. So nothing with the onboarding. Now with the paid internship, it is possible to have job coaching services, so supports for that individual provided by, in most cases, the regional center, but in some cases, the school. And so those supports hopefully would help the business with the onboarding process. But no, none of those costs can go towards that, but there might be other ways to pay for those things like the background check specifically.
Thank you for those answers.
Yeah.
Are these funds separate from self-determination funds? So once the 10,000 is used, is that deducted from the self-determination budget?
Right now with self-determination, I think they're very close to rolling out statewide, but I'm not 100% sure about that. This would be a separate program. So if a person, and I know just a little bit about self-determination, if a person has a budget of X amount of dollars and they have to subtract the 10,400 from that, I can see that as a potential. But the money for this is through AB 2X1, and it stands somewhat separate. So I think that's we'll check that out. To be honest with you, I'm just not an expert on self-determination, so I really would have to get back to you on that. But
I'm going to take one more, and then I know that there are others. I see messages. Well, I see a notice saying there are 6 additional messages that I haven't seen yet. But in order to keep us moving, I'll ask one more question, and then we'll take another break for questions in a moment. So the next question is, where can I find written information about the ability of regional centers to vendor schools for PIP? And then the person says, a letter dated August 26, 16, from DDS to Regional Center Executive Director states, and they quote, since existing service codes will be used for both programs, regional centers will only need to add the new subcodes, end quote.
Yeah, I mean, the first part, you have to repeat the first part for me, but yes, the program for CIE incentive payments and for paid internship program correlate with whatever program's going on. So in some cases, that might be a supported employment program. Others might be a day program, might be a community integrated services program, in which case you just put the subcode for PIP for if it's an internship through that service, or if it's an incentive payment, then there's CIE incentive payment subcodes. But what was the first part of that, Will?
Where can they find written information about the ability of regional centers to vendorize schools for the PIP?
There's trailer bill language in the Welfare Institutions Code that says that schools can be vendored. I think I read the trailer bill language in this, but it'd be 4648.55 in the Welfare Institutions Code, and I forget what letter of distinction. Also, if you go to the CHS website under the CIE tab, there is an example of Lodi's Unified School District's program design, I believe, which is what will have to happen once you start the vendorization process. Other than that, I'm not sure if anything's written down. You'd have to speak with your local regional center for guidance.
Yeah, so I looked at the next question, and since I think it's so related, maybe I should throw this in. Incentive payments only to vendors, or can it go to employers who are not vendors?
Theoretically, the incentive payments don't have to necessarily go just to vendors. It can be worked out to where if an outside entity finds an individual job that turns out to qualify for the incentive payments, they can work through a financial management service to kind of act as as a conduit, or I'm not sure if that's the right word, but through that, because they are vendored, you might be able to receive through the regional center that way. So again, if that's the situation, I'd speak to your local regional center and see if you can obtain that incentive payment. It would have to be funneled through a FMS, as we call it, financial management service, as an individual, or obviously an outside agency would generally not be vendored with the regional center.
So I'm making a promise to Francis Kohler that we will begin with your question when we resume asking questions. So Michael, I'm going to hand this back over to you to continue the presentation.
Yeah, and I've got just a few more slides on LPAs, and then
double back before we go to this. Yeah, thanks.
You'll see a thing that says questions up there. So, okay, back to local partnership agreements. As a pathway to employment, post-secondary education activities such as vocational training program, community college programs, internships and adult education programs assist individuals to prepare for the career of their choice. Those PSE activities can include a wide range of adult education and/or vocational training programs. The path an individual chooses should be tied to their career planning process and support needed to achieve the individual's identified vocational goal. Okay, each agreement is built around the core partners of one or more local education agencies, one or more DOR districts, and one or more regional centers, include any number of additional local partners. There is no restrictions to having multiple partners and multiple LPAs. The only requirement that each LPA include the 3 core partners. So everything starts with the 3 core partners, and then things can be added as necessary. As you can see, the core partners there, and those are an example of community partners. It's not an exhaustive list. And as I said, basically, a local partnership agreement can include any number of local community partners. The incorporation of local community partners expand on what's possible when creating a local partnership agreement, but is not required. Potential community partners will vary based on the local resources. All right, what is included in a local partnership agreement? The local level LPA template will include information to guide and structure the development of a plan to expand the capacity of adult pathways to employment to support individuals to achieve CIE, linkages to statewide resources such as America's Job Centers of California, adult education programs, community colleges, disability support programs and services, independent living centers, and community college and adult education consortia to improve pathways to CIE. Linkages to unique regional resources such as college to career, project search, tailored day services, and future community-based vocational development services as well. All right, local partnership agreements create frameworks that transcend changes to personnel funding and political climates. They are critical to change the ways the mutual customers of the core partners are served, to better utilize resources, and to provide improved employment outcomes. By taking the time to create a plan for working together, an opportunity for building trust, respect, and cooperation is created. The LPAs will use person-centered planning perspective to define when it is appropriate to invite DOR, regional center, and other partners to an individualized education program meeting. What does the coordination between the local education agency, DOR district, and the regional center look like? How do you make a referral to a regional center for an eligibility determination? And how you determine to invite other partners that are able to support an individual's CIE goal. All right, just a couple more. You can see here the benefits of developing a local partnership agreement. Some of them include collaborative person-centered planning process, focus on individual and individual's dream and future plans, engagement and participation of underserved communities, including racially and ethnically diverse groups, trust, communication, and respect between organizations, and increased competitive integrated employment opportunities for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And when should they be developed? Essentially, LPAs may be developed at any time. Core partners are currently in the process now to ensure compliance with the commitments made in the blueprint. Now is a great time for the community college system to join an LPA. While it's not mandatory in order to provide PIPs, it's a great way to help individuals navigate the confusing labyrinth of service delivery and put your local community college or district in the middle of the discussion on how to help individuals pursue and achieve CIE. And here's what you can do to participate. Contact either your LEA, your local DOR office, or your local regional center. All community partners interested in entering into an LPA should contact their local SELPA director as well, if necessary. Contact information for your local core partners is available on each partner's website and may also be provided by request through the California CIE inbox, which will be on the next slide. Interested community partners are encouraged to review a local partnership agreement template located on the CIE webpage. Community partners bring additional resources to the collaboration. Identifying resources you can contribute would help the core partners see how they could be used and how they could be more efficient. And then lastly, here are the resources I'd mentioned earlier. You can see the CHHS website, and there's the email address. If you have any questions or comments, you can go directly to the California CIE at dor.ca.gov. With that, Will, I have a thing that says questions.
Thank you so much, Michael. While we are looking at some of the questions, Liz, feel free at any time to be ready to begin. So the first question, Michael, can you define what a local partner is within the context of LPA documents?
Yeah, well, the local partners, as I mentioned, have to start with the 3 core partners. And so that'll be someone from your local DOR district, at least one person. There are 14 technically, but one is headquarters here in Sacramento, 13 throughout the state. There's 21 regional centers throughout the state, and education, there's just hundreds, if not thousands of entities there. So they get together, they're the core partners, and then within that, they look to see who they can include as community partners. As I mentioned, America's Job Centers, California might be a community partner. A Chamber of Commerce might be a community member. A service provider, either supported employment or something like that, could be a community partner. Business engagement is important. I wouldn't doubt to see some businesses in the future become community partners. It's really based on what's good for your area and the resources that are available. It shouldn't actually be thought of as something that's limiting. Someone can or cannot join an LPA. If they can help an individual's path and be part of that team to help with them finding CIE, they can certainly look into it and join if appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Is the paid internship program available to students over the age of 22?
No.
Yes, it is. The paid internship program is 18 years and up. Now, obviously, from the school aspect, it's going to probably be 18 to 22 for high school. But no, a 30-year-old can enjoy a PIP, a 40-year-old, a 50-year-old, a 60-year-old, no age limit beyond 18 and over.
Hence us offering this webinar to California community colleges. So yay. All right, Next question. What about CIE placements that the individual or their family has found the job? However, the agency has worked hard in helping the individual succeed. They are not eligible for incentives?
There's a couple ways you can go, and it's almost like a negotiation. As I mentioned earlier, other entities who aren't vendored, like a family, could potentially get the incentive payment through channeling it through a FMS, a financial management service. So you have to work with the regional center there. And I've heard of certain situations, and Liz might even actually be able to speak to this, of an entity, and an example that you gave me, a family who finds a job. So let's say they find a job at Safeway or wherever, and after 30 days, the individual is still employed. So maybe the family through an FMS gets that $1,000 30-day incentive payment. But in the meantime, a service provider is providing, say, job coaching and other support to help the individual retain that job. So perhaps then at 6 months or 12 months, if that individual is still working there, perhaps the service provider would get those incentive payments. Maybe there'd be a negotiation with the family or something of that nature. It's not spelled out, so anything that seems reasonable, but yeah, anyone can technically get the incentive payment if they find a job that lasts 30 days, 6 months, 12 months. But if they're not vendored, then yeah, they'd have to work with the regional center to see if it can be passed through a financial management service.
Yeah. Right, correct.
Thank you so much, Michael. As we're moving on to the next couple of questions, Liz, if you could take a look at your text messages, I'd appreciate that. Next question, does an employer have to become vendored through regional center to provide a paid internship?
No, the employer does not. Generally, it would go through a service provider who obviously would have to be vendored, and they'd act as the employer rec. That's one of the ways that could happen, but it seems to be the most popular way right now. So the business would not have to be vendored. The regional center would work in most cases through a service provider.
Next question, can interns in the paid internship program be supported during the summer by regional center staff, as LEA staff may not be available?
The way it was set up, the thought would be that in the summertime, when schools obviously have less staffing, that the regional center would hopefully be able to pick up the job coaching during that time. Always work with your local regional center, but that was the idea when it was created.
Thank you. Someone is asking what America Job Centers is. I don't know if it's fair to, can we put that on in the parking lot for now?
Absolutely. It's another employment resource in the community, but yeah, go ahead. I mean, yeah,
Thank
you can
you.
park that.
Question, where is Lodi's written example of their paid internship program vendor format? I guess Liz will speak to that in a moment, yeah?
Yes.
Good, thank you. Next question, universities, could they be included in LPAs?
To be honest with you, I don't see why not. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, they're a community resource. They, because part of the LPA is kind of finding out what an individual can do to help with their CIE potential, and some of that is obviously education. And so, yeah, definitely universities can be involved.
On a related note, will there be online job boards where we can list our paid internship program opportunities for regional center consumers and clients?
I do not know. There's always kind of talk about job listings and things like that. It's a little tricky. The one thing that we do want with the paid internship and even the CIE incentive payments is to make sure it's person-centered to begin with. And so as long as those kind of boards wouldn't interfere with it being driven by the individual, then I wouldn't see any issues with that.
Okay.
But right now, there's no plans I know of.
Okay. I am not sure where the question is on here, but I'm going to just read this as I see it. To clarify, they're speaking about an approach from an employer to provide them with a packet of info. Can you email info to parents and they could hire my child as an intern and pay directly or through FMS and later be reimbursed by DDS after the internship ends?
I might have to see that question in writing.
Yeah.
It's just a little long for me to comprehend. I would like to say that right now the three partners are in the process of developing a webinar that would speak directly to families and to consumers. So we're hoping to get that created and then eventually disseminated. So it wouldn't be a situation where you would have to tune in to a webinar, and if you didn't, you'd miss it. We're hoping we can disseminate that further. That's being created, but that question seemed to have a little bit too many working parts for my brain to process auditorily.
I have maybe 20 questions, but I'm going to ask one more and move to Liz. So this person states WIC 4648.55, and it's speaking about school districts with contracts with regional centers. Their question is there any other place that they can find documentation that schools can be vendorized by regional centers?
I think that's statute, and that's the only place I know of, other than just, as I mentioned, I know that Lodi School District program design is on the CHHS website, but that doesn't speak to a process. You'd have to talk to the regional center for that vendoring process. Program design is just one creation. But 4648.55 is the only place on the top of my head I know that mentions that it's okay to vendor programs for PIP and then CIE jobs.
Great. Thank you so much, Michael, for your presentation and for the responses to these questions. Liz, we are going to transition to you if we can do that now, and then I'll come back to questions. My apologies, folks, if I have not covered your question yet. I'm staring at approximately 20 questions that we have not, or that we haven't covered. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you, Michael, for sharing all that, and thank you, Will, for having us. Are you still seeing the double screen?
I am. We see your current slide, and then we see your next slide. But in the interest of time, I know you've attempted. In the interest of time, I think maybe we should keep moving for now.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Hey, I want to thank Will for having us, and this is the second time we've done this presentation. I appreciate everyone coming on today. I want to say I just stepped off a cruise last night to the Caribbean for 10 days, so I'll share anything you want. I've been really relaxed. So I'm going to go through the nitty-gritty of what Lodi did. I can just see from our paperwork, looking at it this morning, that we have had our program design approved for a year. So we're going to go through the process and share our journey and our story, and hopefully we can answer the questions that you all have. So just a little bit about myself. I know Will has expressed that, but it is my 42nd year in education. And I just want to say I still get really excited about the work that we're doing, the work that Michael's talking about this morning, and love developing ways to assist our students and helping our students find their career pathway. I am a program specialist, so I am a district program, kind of a medium-sized district, I believe. We are in Northern California. It's rainy today. Our claim to fame in Lodi is growing grapes, and Creedence Clearwater getting stuck here. I want to share, if you don't know what these puppies are, these are skipper keys. Look them up. They're my family. And I just want to say how adamant we are in Lodi about helping our students find their career pathway. This is one of our students from our 18 to 21-year-old program that she just completed year 3 working for the district. So we're really proud about that. Oops, I can see I'm going to go in a different way. Again, I like to kind of do easy bottom line. So when I look at competitive integrative employment, you know, again, we're talking to employers about full or part-time, minimum wage or above, individual placement, and certainly in the community. And definitely we're looking at and talking with employers and our students and their families about obtaining a living wage for our students as they move into the world of adults. So starting with the student, Kiana Gray was our very first intern. She started about a year ago. Last fall, she presented at their board meeting. So I'm going to quickly go through her PowerPoint because I think it really does speak to the students we're talking about. So she presented this at a board meeting at Valley Mountain Regional Center. So she talks about her hopes and dreams, and this is a young lady who wanted to do fashion, loves fashion. She is so well dressed. She'll let you know when you need to get your nails done or you're not looking quite up to par. Wonderful young lady. So her dream was to start an online business, to continue to learn new skills. Favorite things she likes to do, of course, go shopping, putting puzzles together. She talked about her strengths. She's organized, a great listener, reliable, dresses very nice, supports to help her succeed about repeating directions and modeling the task. She uses an alarm on watch for breaks. This is something we taught her during the internship program. Ask questions for better understanding and break down the task. She wanted to work at Marshall's. She had worked at Marshall's at a shorter term workability placement. And the employer said to our job coach, you know, if we could just have her a little bit longer and a longer time, I think I would be able to hire her at some point. And so we came along with, boy, do we have the program for you. And that's how we got the paid internship at Marshall's. In Lodi, we've had really great success with some of our students who have been employed at Marshall's. They do move up. We have a student who came to speak recently who he's the manager of the Marshalls in downtown San Francisco. He has an apartment. He just drove over to Lodi in his new BMW. So it is an opportunity that some of our students have taken. So she works at Lodi and Marshalls. She started as an intern 1 year ago, last March. She got a variety of experiences. She worked in the shoe department. She loves to work, very fashion oriented. She was a very hard worker. Throughout her internship, we tried to move her around the store so she had as many experiences as possible. She received really good evaluations and we're still learning tasks. I can say that Kiana worked after school, so she worked like Thursday, Friday afternoon, Saturday, and Sunday. Her mom was very, very supportive and did help with the transportation. And I just want to say Kiana was the first paid intern in this state, and I do believe she's the first paid intern to now move to the employer's payroll. So she was hired like last week, and now she is working for Marshall's in Lodi through the paid internship program. And I don't believe if we didn't have this opportunity for Kiana that she'd be working there today. It just provided the employer with more hours, more time. We came in and taught her a variety of skills and job coached her throughout the time she was there. We didn't have a job coach with her full time. We would bring a coach in and out and teach her new skills. And actually our job coach went and helped her fill out her payroll packet and do all that, you know, through Marshall's. So she's officially not in paid internship as of this week, and she is on their payroll. So that I think is really exciting. So the paid internship program, you know, I know Michael has already gone through a lot of this, but I think it's really helpful to have it together. I know you'll have my PowerPoint. Feel free to, you know, modify it, tweak it any way you want and use it for yourself. It does set a maximum payment of $10,400 per year. I know in Lodi I have an opportunity, and I'm privileged to have a lot of opportunities for kids to have paid work experience. But none of my programs, think about that, none of my programs can have a student where I can pay them $10,400 a year to have that experience. I mean, it's a true paid internship. We do pay, of course, minimum wage or prevailing wage. We're going to talk about a student that's just started at Costco, and they pay $13 an hour. So we just worked that through our district. But he started, and this is a student in one of our 18 to 22-year-old programs who's making $13 an hour working at Costco. And again, Costco is another employer that has produced a lot of wonderful lifetime career opportunities for our students. They do, we already answered it, they have to be a regional center consumer. For our program, in our program design, it's 16 to 21. So in Lodi, with my fiscal department, we sat down and we looked at that $10,400, and they do pay the, you know, the little bit of workers' comp, and there's a little bit of indirect in there. So it comes out in our district the way we do it, about 850 hours of paid internship. So I don't know of any other program where you could put a student and an ID student out in the community and give them 850 hours. To me, that's almost half-time. You know, if they're still in school, it's almost working every day, half-time or a couple days on the weekend. Or you could run a summer program where they work full-time, or however you work that out with your program. But that's a phenomenal amount of hours, and we really need to use that money that's there. I hope you're excited, because that's exciting. So, you know, there always are requirements, and I really think out of all the programs that I operate, that this is really one of the easier programs to do. I mean, there's some things that are a little bit different, but the data collection is really not overwhelming. You know, DDS has certain things they need, and so our regional center that we work with, Valley Mountain Regional Center, has to give them that information. So you have to collect at the end of the year how many placements, type of placements, how many hours each consumer worked, hourly, you know, nothing that you don't keep track of anyway. You could go through your time card and you could set that up very easily to give them that information at the end of the year. And again, there's, of course, always the clause of the other, right? Any other information they may want. They've already talked about it, but all of our final documents are on the website, and here's the process that you can find it, the sample design, I think all the tabs and all the table of contents. But if you need any of that information, I certainly will share that with you. We were the first paid internship, and so I think some of our templates, they have a lot in them, so I think over the process they may have shortened that a little bit, but you certainly can get all the information out of our template. So here's the steps that I think we went to get our internship program in Lodi Unified. So they've already talked about this. So when you get off the phone, you talk to your employment specialist at the regional center. They're going to be your connection to paid internship. They really know how to do it, and they've now in the last year have gone through training and through the process, so it's not going to be so new to them. I was at a meeting with Denise Curtright, who now is retired, good for her, with DDS, and Wilma Murray's from our local regional center. And I had a meeting, and I just brought them together to talk about, are you really kidding me that I can get $10,400 per student to help them in paid internship? So we were the first, so Denise did come down, and we met with Regional Center. We kind of went through the process because we were still looking for, as some of you have asked, all of the formal paperwork. But they came down, and Regional Center was on board right away. I mean, they were really excited about the opportunity. And everyone is trying to, you know, increase the number of individuals who are working. So this is a great way for them to be able to do that. So you have to send a letter of intent that you want to develop the PIP to the Regional Center. So you can get online. It's just, you have to download it. It's not fillable form. I'm going to show you mine in a second, but you have to get online and fill that out. So you can see I met with Denise and Wilma in the fall of 2016. And then we kind of went back a little bit. So I went back, and one of the processes, we hadn't filled out the letter of intent. But you can see that this one is dated 1/17, where I did it formally. And in like 2 months, I had my program. So again, it's nothing fancy. I was trying to kick this out really quickly and try to make it happen, because we had kids that we had already talked about who we thought were ready for the paid internship program. So again, I just want to show you it's not that hard. I filled this out and I faxed it to them, and they took it like it was. It's nothing fancy. And then you need to check with the regional center about becoming a vendor. And I probably would talk to your employment specialist. They can look it up and they can find out if your agency or your school district is a vendor or not. We were a vendor, but they didn't feel like it was quite a match. So we did go back through the whole vendor application, and it's not hard. I did it in a couple of hours. It's not hard at all. So it'll be one of two things. You might have to do an addition to a vendorship that your district or that your agency already has, or start fresh. And it's not very hard. All of that is online, and you can get that. I do believe that our employment specialist sent all that to me. It's not very hard. So here's a copy, just a scanned copy of our vendor application. And again, when you're going through this process, you need to work with your fiscal department. So in our district, our controller, financial controller, has to fill out this kind of stuff to be the vendor. They have to give you, your district ID code and that sort of thing. So Maria Fong filled out, I filled it out, and then I took it over to her, and she signed that. It's like I said, it's not very hard to do. And again, the billing is all done online, so that as you do this, you do put in a blank check. And the things that they were asking for, I'm thinking, oh man, I don't know, my district's gonna give me a blank check to do that. But it's part of their fiscal problem. They had no problem with it. It's part of their fiscal process. So you do give them a blank check, and what happens is you do direct deposit. So in our district has a resource code called Paid Internship Program, and money going in and out of that goes into that resource code, and it really does work really easily, and it wasn't hard at all. I mean, this part was not hard. So you have to develop a program design, right? And so, if you're going to do a paid internship program, then what's it going to look like? Who's going to supervise it? How are you going to job coach? What is the process? What's it going to look like? What kind of paperwork are you going to use? So that is really all part of your program design. You have my whole one. I got a template from the regional center that they kind of kept changing a little bit because they were trying to stay ahead of me. But some of your other regional center templates might look a lot different from mine, because they may have, streamlined them a little bit. But if not, use mine, because I tried to cover every single thing so that I could get started and they wouldn't reject it or keep sending it back. So it went back a couple times because regional center wanted to add a few things about, safety and those kinds of things. So it went back like 1 or 2 times. Very simple, but just follow their template. It's easy to do. So you have to get a program design approval. So here's our approval. So you can see I did that formal intent in January, and by April we had our program design approved. And it's very simple. You have to sign it, send it back. So once we had our final design approved, and I don't even think it was called PIP then, this is a little section of my program design. And again, it's all online, and anything you want, I'll send to you. You had to come up with some kind of organizational structure. What's that going to look like? Who's going to be part of your program? So again, it was taking a little bit time thinking, how are we going to design our paid internship program? Table of contents, and you can see from ours that we did some attachments. I took some of my paperwork that I had from Workability and CalPromise and TPP. I took some of that we already had in terms of referrals and student evaluations and all that, and I just modified it to our paid internship program, and I have copies of all that. So we had attachments, and these are things that my regional center wanted included, so I just did it, okay? Sometimes it seems a little bit of overkill, but I have all that information so I wouldn't have any challenges when I got it finally approved. So those are things, and you can have any of those forms that you want. And again, if you come up with something that's better than mine, send it my way, because I've shared this with many people. But again, I was doing it quickly and trying to just get it through. So, you know, if you look at it and you go, gosh, I could, you know, I would do this differently, share it with me, please. We have current placement. So really right now, we have 1 student hired and we have 4 students in paid internship. We're just finishing our spring break, so we'll be moving on to the next group of students. We really have tried to have a diverse group of students. We try to have equity across our districts and our adult programs. So we're now, you know, getting referrals from different programs to make sure that we're equitable across the board. Marshall's got hired. We have a student at San Joaquin Delta College, an awesome kid. This is a young man. He's working in the foster youth department. He's also a foster youth, and it's really neat to see this young man blossom. He's also going to Delta. So he's going to Delta and working, and he's doing things like helping students who are foster youth get integrated into the college. It's really an awesome job. And they do, Delta College, on extra things throughout the month, continue to hire them on their own. So I'm sure that he will get hired by Delta College. We have a student at Joanne Fabrics. We have a student at Walgreens. These are all great employers that typically hire our students, and they were of interest to the students based on their plan. What happened? Uh-oh, what happened? Can you see my?
Hi, just share it again.
Okay. What happened? Sorry.
Hit share screen and just do it, yeah.
Okay. Okay, and then we just had a student started maybe a month ago at Costco, which is really exciting. We had a prior TPP student that went to work at Costco. He went to the employers. He's been working there. He's now employed as a butcher. He's been there 10 or 12 years. He went to Costco and said, I would really like to help a student have the experience that I had. And typically in our area, Costco doesn't take like workability placements. They want to do direct hires. So we've done direct hires there. So this young man who's already working there advocated to get students at Costco. So now we have our first paid intern because, again, this is an employer that said, I'd like to have more time with a student. You know, I want to, and so the internship program was a great match. And this student's making $13 an hour right now. So we're processing new referrals across the board, and I did write the program design for 20. We want to make sure as we move along that we are bringing students in and making sure everyone's safe and working through any challenges as we're moving along before we get a lot of students out. Just quickly, I know we're kind of looking at a time. We're marketing, so one of the next things we did was market. We made a really simple flyer. I really kept the paid internship program pretty simple. I think the paperwork's simple and the process has been pretty simple. We developed a flyer just to spread the word. You know, you got to let students and parents and your other program specialists in your district or people you work with, regional center coordinators, you got to let them know what it is about and let them help you find referrals, but just so that they also know what's going on. Then we looked at the referrals to our PIP program and decided we were trying to take about 5 at a time. So we're kind of looking at the first 5 that we have, and we picked those students. And then I think this is really important, that really worked for us. I just held a meeting with the potential student, the family support, whatever family support that might have been, you know, their parents or their care home, whatever it was, the student's teacher, and the regional center service coordinator, just to make sure before we started all this process that we're on the same page. They're going to work a lot of hours. How does it impact your Social Security? What about transportation? The student's going to be working, you know, longer hours. They're going to be working, you know, the job is, you know, they're going to be working independently. Just to make sure that everyone, including the regional center, was on the same page. And I think that was really, really, really helpful. The really fun thing, and I have Lisa Jobs is a teacher working with me on special assignment here, and she's really been doing the implementation, and her information is in the back of our PowerPoint if you want to contact her. But she was setting up these meetings. I was figuring out why are these people, regional center, man, we can get a meeting in a day or two. People were coming immediately to these meetings, and I couldn't figure out how she was getting those coordinated so quickly. But people were so excited, including the student and their family. But the regional center, they were so on board. They were like, when we said we're going to have an internship meeting, that was the top of their list. And they would come running down here almost immediately. And it became this competition. I remember a couple of the service coordinators come in, and I'm like, thank you for coming so quickly. And they were like, oh my gosh, this is, you know, everybody's talking about this, and I'm going to have number 2 in the state. I'm going to have number 3 in the state. And so they were so excited. And our regional center, I have to say, has just been such a support of this program. They were really excited. But it was fun to see your agency partners run to meetings that they were so excited to be there. Anyway, very good. I think essentially we developed an internship plan. And as we were looking at the plan, you know, do we need always? Are there other career assessments we need? Does every student have a person-driven plan? That's mandatory, right? And do we need to expand on that plan? Transportation is a big one, right? Mobility training. We have found out more and more, you know, we have some students where parents are going to pick them up, and then we'll get a call now. They've been working, remember, a lot of hours. You get into 600, 700 hours. Maybe, you know, mom doesn't want to pick them up today, right? So we're working through that mobility training, which we're really should be a part of our process. So transportation, the impact, so they understand the impact on their SSI. Our goal for our kids, because they are in school, is to work about 20 hours a week, 15 to 20 hours a week, because we're having them work in the afternoon and on weekends or evenings. Our goal is to get them hired or to acquire skill sets to take them to a similar employer. So we're really looking at the opportunity based on their PDP and their career pathway goals to put them with employers that are going to help them reach that. And, you know, how much job coaching does a student need? So I want to thank Linda O'Neill. I took this person-driven plan for her one page. I've used it a bunch of times now. I really like this. I think that this came out of their LPA maybe, but this is a great form that we've been using as initially, if we have students who haven't had person-driven plans, as a starting point. And it really, if you look through it, it seems simple, but as you work through the process, you get a lot of great information about a student. Our local regional center also has a pretty good person-centered plan, so sometimes we'll do a combination of both. And then we looked at job development. Again, this is different. I'm telling my job developers, you're asking those businesses to take a student on for a long term, where you might have 100, 150 hours in some of your other programs. You know, in our district, we're asking an employer to take a student. They don't have to use all the hours, but up to 850 hours. That's a different commitment. Some employers love that because then they know they'll have a student longer than just a few hours here and there. But when you get down to the bottom line of signing all the paperwork and stuff, it is a commitment on the business, and many times they have to sit back and think about that. For our job development, we're fortunate that I used a lot of our current staff I already had. So I used Workability, I used TPP Project, and I've used CalPromise. I've used my job developers from them because they're the same students that we're serving, and that has worked for us. But we do have a different view in terms of how we're job developing. We're job developing with a different purpose. We're job developing, you know, for a long-term paid internship, which we hope will lead to employment. So you're asking your businesses to do something a little bit different. And we're also I'm looking at experienced job coaches that will build skills that lead to a hire. So as I'm looking at which job coaches work with those interns, I'm looking at them a little bit differently because I want them, like with Kiana, her job coach would go in on Saturday morning and pick up on things that were happening, maybe even with just the managers, you know, and picking up little subtle things to make sure that when we went for the hire, she was ready to do that. So it's a little bit different, in my opinion, of job coaching. In terms of placement activities, we, you know, notify the regional center of the start date, and we keep them very abreast. The regional center develops what we call a POS, or a purchase of service, and it's sent to our program and to our fiscal department who do the invoicing. So they approve Kiana $10,400 1 year from the start date. So if you started March, you have till March to use that $10,400. You don't have to use it all. And then next year, you know, later on in the next fiscal year, you could do it again if you needed to. Again, in placement activity, we're looking at, do they need their resume updated? Do they need interview practice? Do they need more soft skills, customer service lessons? Do we need to update their PDP? Any of those kinds of things. Mobility training, I think, is where we're at right now with our regional center, having all of our interns go through a very structured, customized mobility training to get to and from work. Job coaching I talked about a little bit, but I think it looks at how do we get this individual hired? What skills does this student need to do to be able to market this student to this employer or to a similar employer? So I've used, and I am fortunate to have programs, but I do use some of my current job coaching that maybe are already here. We did have additional hours that are funded by Regional Center that pay for my job coach to go in on the weekend. And all these things, you know, you need to negotiate with your regional center. So be on really good terms, get married to your employment specialist at the regional center because they're the ones that are going to help you. You can also do Department of Rehab short-term job coaching. And then we do, of course, we're doing regular follow-ups and interventions if we have any challenges with our students. So most of our students now are on part-time job coaching. Invoicing, again, you know, so it's kind of like TPP where our district, we get the time card and then, you know, I sign it, our district pays it, and then they invoice the regional center for that money back, and it goes back into that same resource code. So I verify that the hours work, sign the time card, and we have a system in our district where those time cards go directly to the person who does the invoicing. So it's a little bit different. So again, you do need to sit down with your fiscal people and talk about how you're going to work through that process. It's really kind of cool because when you invoice, you're popping up, it's a little bit different where many times where you're invoicing, you're saying, Kiana worked 4 hours on Saturday. In this particular invoicing, you're saying, you know, you're figuring out with the regional center minimum wage plus what your district is doing for workers' comp, and then our district has a little bit of indirect, right? So say maybe you're billing for $11 or $12. Let's just make it up. You're for $12. So instead of putting 4 hours, you're putting the amount that $12 would be times 4. Does that make sense? So each time you invoice, it's deducting. So you're not going to go over your $10,400. So when you pull it up the next month, it's going to say, now you have $9,500. And then you're pulling. So it totally makes sense. It's a little bit different, but it works really well. So you're basing it on how much you spent that much on the student. And then the really cool thing was, I have to say, to Regional Center, we get paid on a really timely manner. And as soon as you get that in at certain times of the month, if you hit the invoices around the 5th or the 15th, you get paid almost immediately. So it's and it goes right into direct deposit, right into that resource code. It's really slick, and it took us a little bit to figure that out, but once my fiscal people got it, they really like it. We do certainly employer evaluations, that part of the process. This is our form. Feel free to use it or change it, whatever you like. I always think it's good that students do a self-reflection. How did they do on the job? What do they think they did? How do they think they can improve? Again, that's a great way that you can continue to provide coaching in those areas that they think they didn't do as well in. We already talked about it, but you do have to do follow-up reports. They're not hard at all. It doesn't take a lot of time. A mid-year and an annual report, really easy. And then, you know, again, we don't have all the answers. We're putting the pieces together and we're learning as we go along, but it has been a really nice collaboration. Michael already talked a lot about the incentives for CIE, but when you write your program design, as long as you're doing all that paperwork, also ask for CIE incentives. So you'll have to do another shorter program design, a little thing, but do it all at the same time and get them all approved at the same time so you're ready to go. So again, you can get, money, and this money is discretionary money. I love discretionary money because I can pay for things that I typically couldn't pay out of other grants that I operate. So you want some of this discretionary money. Maybe there's something that you need for a student, you don't have another way to pay for it. You could help other paid interns be able to, get whatever you need for them to make them successful. So I think that is a great way to do it. It's all about the students. It is a little bit of work to get it started. It is, we are all trying to kind of figure it out and who's going to be responsible for what student as we move along. But again, we stay student focused and it's all about the students. When you see this wonderful lady, and again, she's a student that came from my site, now to think that she exited at 22 and is employed in the community and really does have a career pathway for her. It's really amazing. I know all of you work really hard, and sometimes we think, oh, do I want to do one more thing? But I can't tell you enough that this opportunity is a great one, and I hope more of you do it so they don't take the money away thinking that we're not using it. So I just want to thank you all for supporting our California students, their family, and especially their dreams. This is my new puppy. And here's the email and phone number for Lisa and myself. I really put the program together, but Lisa really is in charge of the day-to-day. So if you have other questions that I haven't, let me look at my notes that I haven't. One of the questions I had from the last time is the service code for paid internship, we're using 65, and for job coaching, we're using 63, if that means anything to those of you. That was a question I had last time, so I want to make sure I answered it. And I thank you so very much. And if there's anything I can help you with, please feel free to call or email me, and Lisa and I will help you in any way we can. I do think it's an opportunity that we need to take advantage of, and especially when you look at your students out working in the community. I mean, paid internship, if you look at paid internship, across the board, when an employer is getting ready to hire and you've had a paid internship in there for many months and they're doing a good job, who do you think that employer is going to hire? So it's just a great opportunity, and I hope more of you take advantage of it. And I thank you so much for your time, and I also appreciate, I know we had to reschedule this because I had no voice the last time, so I thank you for coming back and listening to us. So I think I'm good.
Thank you so much, Liz.
We have a couple minutes.
Thank you so much, Liz. Thank you, Michael, for fielding questions in the chat box. I have two questions that I pulled earlier from people, and they are: if the school district is the vendor and places a student in competitive integrated employment, then the student is exiting high school. Can the school district continue to get credit, in parentheses, incentive pay, after school and still continue working with the graduate and receive the credits?
I think that would be a Michael question.
Yeah, I think it is too. It sounds like they're saying that if the school's not providing supports after the person leaves school, but they had the school had helped them get the CIE position. Is that what I'm hearing?
It sounds like it, yes.
Yeah. That's kind of a tough question to see how that happens. Let's get a bunch of schools vendored and a bunch of people on CIE, and maybe tackle that question slightly down the road. I'll look into it, but if they're vendored with the regional center to provide services, they could provide those services regardless whether a student is in their system. Now, they probably wouldn't be able to provide the support services if the student wasn't a student anymore, and they'd probably be working with a service provider of some sort. Again, then that would be more of a negotiation to see really who would get any kind of incentive payments. But if a school is vendored, then they could provide those kind of services, but I'm sure they probably wouldn't provide services to students after the student leaves their system. And if I'm wrong on that, and Liz knows that I'm wrong, she can chime in, but my guess is that's probably the way it would go. But there's no hard, fast rules there that I know of.
I will connect you with this person, Michael, so that a conversation can continue on this. Another question that person had is, can a student that is 16 years old participate in the paid internship program? They're saying in their area, they were told that the person has to be 18 years old.
It's my understanding that's 18 years old. If I found out otherwise, I will give you a quick email and you can disseminate that. But Right now, everything that I've seen in my memory is 18 years old. Unfortunately, I don't have the statute right in front of me, but I'm pretty sure it's 18 and up. That's generally what we've seen at least. It might be
Great, thank you so much. So again, my apologies that we were not able to provide the PowerPoint presentations, the slides to you before this webinar. I am going to be making those available via email. I will send them to you separately because you can imagine, given the graphics, the sizes are huge. So in order not to crash your email, I'm going to send them to you separately. I'm also going to be making them available to you via our website. I will provide a link to that. In closing, thank you so much, Michael Clay and Liz Zastrow, for your sharing the wealth of your knowledge with our partners on the phone, with the community colleges, with K-12 school districts, and others. Yes, I see requests for the PowerPoint. I have your email addresses, and I will be sending both to you separately. And again, thank you so much for participating today. You will see that I have been continuously inserting a message into the chat box asking for you to click on the Survey Monkey so that you can provide your feedback. I cannot stress how important your feedback is to us. It will provide information to us so that we can improve upon these webinars, as well as address topics that are of interest to you. One last question before we go. What are some of the disabilities students have had? Well, we're speaking primarily about intellectual and developmental disabilities today.
Correct. That could be autism, intellectual disability, epilepsy, cerebral palsy, and obviously anything that kind of resembles intellectual disability.
Great, thank you so much. For the benefit of all, we will also be making the audio recording of this webinar available. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Someone's asking for my telephone number. It's 310-206-2626. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon and the rest of the week. Those of you, well, I expect most of you are in California. Be safe with the inclement weather that we're experiencing. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.